Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes, and welcome to those of you on. Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Right, let's. Oops. Okay, so we've got the YouTube going. It's being live streamed. We're going to record here. All right, we'll let the participants in as they come. And please note that, what else was I going to say? Oh, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm using my new computer and I'm not 100% sure of the volume, and I've got my TV going. So please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand, and then I will happily come to you. And let's give another minute for people who are going to be coming. Ooh, and I've got to go and grab Bentley's treat. So I'll be back in one moment. Oh, and let me share my screen with you so you can watch the video instead of me. Oh, let's try that one more time. There we go. And I'm going to stop my video and I'll be back in one moment. One moment. I just want to say hello again, make sure everybody's there. And let me make sure that I've got my participants ready. There we go. Got my participants up, got my chat up. So please just reach out. I am going to turn my video off and begin. All right. Welcome. Once again, I'm Karen Buchwald. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist here with Epicure Nutrition. And the first Tuesday of every month is when I do my nutrition webinars. And then the third Tuesday of every month, I either do a cooking demo or a cook along. So we'll see what comes up in the next month. So I'm going to shut my video off so you can focus on the Ayurveda, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right, and I want to welcome those of you who are on the Zoom call, and I want to welcome those of you that are in the YouTube live. And please make sure that you can locate your chat box, because I am going to be putting a webinar in a link in there towards the end of the presentation. All right, so I'm stopping my video now, and here we go. Ayurveda and Seasonal Eating for Summer by me, Karen Buchwald. And I did get some help with this with a former intern of mine, Marquet, for those of you who remember her. And I have a special thanks to her at the end. So what we're going to be covering today is what is Ayurveda, the basic guiding principles, what the basic elements are, the Ayurvedic principles of food, eating, and taste, what the doshas are, and then last but not least, seasonal eating for summer. Now, I am just going to apologize right off the bat in the beginning. I did try my best to learn these words, even have them spelled out phonetically, but I cannot guarantee that I will be pronouncing them correctly. So I'll appreciate your kindness in the potential horrible pronunciations that I may have. All right. Oops. So let's get started. And like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box because I am limited with the volume. I haven't quite figured it out how to do it with the multiple screens and so forth. First and foremost, I want to discuss scope of practice. When you go and visit a doctor, a dietitian, mental health therapist, you want people to work within their scope of practice. So I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I do have my master's degree in clinical nutrition. However, I do not have a degree or a certificate in Ayurvedic medicine. I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor. I'm not an Ayurvedic nutritionist. So please note that this is for informational purposes only. Feel free to go and learn more on your own or reach out to me if this is something that you're interested in. I can put you in touch with somebody who is more of an expert than I am. And also there are some suggestions that you can do in here that aren't, that could be ways for you to try to implement to see if it works, but not necessarily too in-depth and very in-depth into the Ayurvedic medicine. But this will give you a little bit of an idea of what it is. So that brings us to the first question. What is Ayurveda? Well, Ayu is life or daily living. Veda is knowing, the sciences of life. So Ayurvedic deals a lot with your health. It is, and its sister science is yoga and Tantra, if you've ever heard of that. And they were developed in India centuries ago. It's very similar to what Chinese medicine is. And the purpose of each is to help the individual achieve longevity, rejuvenation, and self-realization as part of the foundation of Ayurvedic sciences. Ayurveda is the foundation, yoga is the body, and Tantra is the head. And they form an interdependent trinity of life. It is the health of the body, the mind, and the consciousness. It's been practiced in India for over 5,000 years and becoming more popular in recent decades to the West, recent decades to us here in the West. It is a medical, let's go. It is a medical, metaphysical healing, life science. It's about self-healing. It's about creating a lifestyle. And it is designed, oops, my apologies. It is designed to promote health, happiness, and creative growth. And let's talk about some of the basic Ayurvedic principles. So like increases like, and so like attracts like. And sometimes having too much of like is not a good thing. And so you'll want to balance it with the opposite to kind of put you in sync. And then everything in existence, let's try that again. I jumped ahead. Everything in existence is connected and a combination of all in existence. So everything is connected, and all existence is a combination of everything in existence. And then all existence is unique in their own ways. So even though there are these, when we start talking a little bit more about elements and doshas and where you fall into those, even though they have some guiding principles that work with them, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have everything's going to work for you. There is some flow to it, and it can be individualized for you. So let's talk about some of the basics of Ayurvedic medicine and nutrition. So these are what the basic elements are. And the basic elements are in all of Ayurveda. you'll find it makes up the food, it makes up the doshas. And so the first one is ether, and you can think about that as something that's light and subtle. In the body, it would give you a feeling of lightness. Air is movement, it's clarity. So in your body, you would think of the element representing itself as movement. Fire is sharp, hot, dry. It also aids in digestion, which we'll be talking about. And in the body, think of it as helping you maintain your body temperature. Water is cold, moist, brings satisfaction. In your body, it's going to show up as fluid balance. And then the earth is heavy, grounding, stability, body. You can think of it as tissue building. What I'm giving you is the very simplistic definition of it. It's not as detailed as it can be, but it at least gives you a little bit of an idea of what these elements are and how these elements combine to create other aspects of Ayurveda. Let's move on. There are 8 factors in Ayurvedic dietetics. Now, let me get to my list because I do have these all phonetically spelled. Prakruti is the nature of food. Karna is the processing of the food. How is it cooked? The idea is in Ayurveda is that if you do slow cooking, it's going to be more grounding. And you want to cook more so with fire than with microwaves or electricity if you can. Sanyoga is what are combinations, and you got to watch out for incompatibilities in food, which we'll go over that list. Rashi is about the quantity. It also goes into the age, the constitution, the season, the balance, imbalance, your exercise, and the type of food. And so that's your Rashi. And then moving on, the 5th principle is Desha. And that's the place or the land where the food is grown. And different foods will have different properties based upon where it's grown or where it's harvested from. And you generally want to try to choose what you can that's in season and local. Kala is the time or the period. It's the day, the season, the age, the time passed with the food. Upayoga Sansta. Let's try that again. Upayoga Sansta are the rules for eating, and we'll go over those. And then we have, this is a tough one. Give me one moment. Upabhoka is based upon your body type. And all of these factors in Ayurvedic dietetics is really about eating seasonally and eating whole foods, being mindful when you eat. That's the basis behind the factors in Ayurvedic dietetics. Eat fresh food. You don't want to eat food that's already been, and that brings us to the next point, actually. So here are some factors to consider when choosing foods. Traditionally, leftovers are considered lifeless or stale, and frozen and canned foods are not optimal. But you have to remember that this was also developed over the last 50 centuries, over the last 5,000 years, and life has changed a lot. We tend to be busier and have more difficult time. So there have been some exceptions with leftovers, but the idea with leftovers is you would like that to be food that you have cooked and that food that you will reheat, preferably on the stove. But we also know that a lot of times at work, you'll have to heat it in the microwave. So those are some things that you want to think about with the food that you eat, as having the freshest food. And that also goes into getting your food locally, seasonally, as best as you can. You want a food pairing. There are some foods that are incompatible, like having 2 different types of proteins at a meal. And so if you're feeling a little bit off with your digestion, maybe following the principles for your dosha, which we'll get to at the end of the presentation, will be something that's helpful. Eating when you're hungry, not too much and not too often, which goes against some of the philosophies of small, frequent meals. And once again, this is introducing you to another way you could approach your health if it works for you, and just to help make you a little bit more in tune with different types of lifestyles that there are available to you. You want to drink when you're thirsty. And this is a tough one, because one of my recommendations is that sometimes you think you're hungry, but you're really thirsty, and it's hard to distinguish between the two. And that is something that you'll hopefully begin to develop the signal in your body. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that you're drinking regularly. If you can get in a liter of water from the time you get up to lunch, that's fantastic. And then another liter in the second half of the day. And that will also help ensure that you're eating when you're hungry, because you know you're not thirsty, because you're giving yourself enough fluid through the day. And raw foods are better to be eaten in summer when you have warmer temperatures, and warmer foods for the cooler temperatures, which is why in the summer it's great to have your salads, and in the winter or in the cooler seasons it's great to have your soups. And there's one of the things that I'd like to mention real quick, and we're going to be getting to it a little bit more in detail in a little bit, is Agni. And what that is that's your digestive fire, and it governs your body's metabolism. And so if you drink too much water, for example, during a meal, you're going to dilute your enzymes in your Agni, which then reduces your ability to digest. And in the summer, your Agni is high, and we talked about doing balances of things. If your Agni is high, then that means you've got a lot of fire, which is a lot of heat. And so if you add more heat to it, then you're intensifying that heat. Think of it almost exponentially. So what you want to do is, because the Agni is high in the higher temperatures, you want to pair that with colder foods to help give you that balance. And another time when Agni is high is around lunchtime. So that's why having a bigger lunch is traditionally better in Ayurveda, because you have more digestive enzymes and fire going. Offering gratitude for a meal, and for those preparing the meal, and for those who harvested the food for you. And a lot of religions do that with their prayers. So it's a similar type of idea. And then the other thing to remember in Ayurveda is that no food is considered good or bad. Everything can be modified to suit every body type needs based on its property and actions. And Ayurveda really works on healthy nutrition to nourish the mind, the body, and the soul. And it We've already talked about what's most important about the foods is its properties, origin, environmental factors, eating in season, how you prepare the food, and the freshness. And then you can work on how it fits according to your dosha and your physical needs. Upayoga Sansta are the rules for eating. We talked a little bit about the Agni and how it's your digestive fire, and that by having too much fluid during mealtime can cause that digestive fire, those enzymes, to dilute. So think about having like a big glass an hour before and a big glass an hour after. However, taste is improved when we have active saliva and enough fluid. So taking small sips while eating is something that's okay. And that actually helps improve the taste and helps with the digestion. You just don't want to be gulping copious amounts of water. You want to refrain from eating when we're upset, and that's that emotional eating. You want to try to avoid distractions such as TV, reading, conversation. Sit upright when you eat. You want to really focus on the food and the taste and chew with love and compassion to completely experience the taste. And part of that is chewing at least 32 times before swallowing. That also helps allow the digestive enzymes to do their work properly and allow the stomach time to prepare for the arrival of the food. When you think about what should be in your meal after you're done, is about a third food, a third water, and a third air. So that's not eating until you're stuffed. It's eating until you're satisfied. And you think about a third of it being food. For most of us, that might be like 2 fistfuls of food. So portion control is important. Another thing that helps aid in digestion is walking 1,000 steps, or about 10 to 15 minutes after eating. So if you think about it, if you're not supposed to eat 3 hours before bed, so if you go to bed at 10, you should be done with your dinner by 7. And that should give you enough time to do a little bit of a walk to help with the digestion of your food. Now we're going to touch about some yoga, which is the incompatibility of foods. In many in different areas, I've seen them talk about fruit should not be eaten with other foods. You want to avoid it with nuts and dairy. So I guess in some ways, there goes trail mix. But dry fruits with milk is okay. Watermelons and melons should be eaten separately. So even mixing up like a cantaloupe and a watermelon is not recommended. Dairy, you don't want to mix it with yogurt, eggs, fish, meat, melons, cherries, or any kind of sour food. We already mentioned the protein, best if not to combine 2 types. Yogurt, you want to avoid that with fruit, meat, nightshades, eggs, and fish. And eggs, you want to avoid that with dairy products, fruits, fish, and meat. Once again, this is informative. Up to you how much of it you want to follow. If you're having digestive issues, maybe see if you work out some of these if your meals consist of these incompatibilities, maybe try separating them out and see if it makes a difference. I know this is a lot of information. So we talked about that Agni. I know it looks like Agni, and I called it Agni all the time. And then I looked up the pronunciation, and it is Agni. It's your digestive fire. It's your capacity to metabolize your food. If you have the healthy, if it's healthy, you'll have the excellent digestion, good bowel movements, your tissues are forming well, good circulation, you don't smell, you have great energy, complexion, immunity, intelligence, enthusiasm, perception. And if it's unhealthy, you're going to have a low appetite, low energy, potentially constipation or diarrhea, bad body odor and breath, low immunity, and you might be a little bit confused and not on top of your game. And some of the things that can cause that unhealthy Agni are eating at inappropriate times. Maybe you're eating within 3 hours of going to bed, over or under eating highly processed foods, which we do a lot of here in the United States. Maybe you're sad, upset, depressed, angry. You're sleeping too much or too little. You're eating before your previous meal has been digested. And this one's one of my favorites. It says immoral behavior. Consumption of excess fluids. And I'd have to say that I was guilty of that for a long time. I would probably drink almost a liter of water with my meals. And for a while it was okay. Then it got to the point where it really made me feel uncomfortable. And I've gone to sipping during meals instead of having a lot. And it's made a complete difference. And if you think about with the stomach, I was having like 1/3 food, 2/3 water, and no room for air. So the food was having a horrible time digesting. So I don't apply all the principles, but I have applied some of them and have noticed a difference. Next, we're going to move on to the 6 tastes that they have. We already talked about needing a little bit of water with taste, water to help with taste. And if the Agni, which is the digestive fire, is impaired, the body's resistance and immune system are impaired, and it can also affect how we taste. Spices can help enkindle the Agni and to cleanse the body and enrich the taste of food. Each taste plays a vital role in our physiology, health, and well-being. And we talked a little bit about foods tasting differently depending on where it's grown or raised. And a good example of that is salt. Sea salt, for example, will taste differently based upon where this sea salt is harvested from. The salinity of the water changes, so or how much seaweed is in the water, and all of that will affect the taste of the salt, just for an example. And really relishing the flavors that we encounter each day by focusing in on what it is that we eat and harness the taste potential to affect our bodies and a positive change in our minds and our bodies. And the more that you are in tune and pay attention to the foods that you're eating and the tastes, the more aware you'll become of the flavors that the different foods have. And going back to what we were talking about with the elements, with these 6 tastes, you'll see that they comprise of the different elements. For example, sour is earth and fire, pungent is fire and air, astringent is air and earth, salty is water and fire, sweet is earth and water, and bitter is air and ether. So those elements keep on coming back and showing up in Ayurvedic principles, as I mentioned they would. Okay, ooh, keep on losing my mouse. Now, let me see. Oops. So here we have time for the Dosha Quiz. So this will take about 5 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put these links in the chat box, or you can just copy it from here and type it into Google, Bing, whatever it is that you're using, Firefox. And these are dosha quizzes that'll tell you what your doshas are. And you should do a couple of different quizzes, as they're all a little bit different. You know, it's like the doctor asking you a question 6 different ways. There's the first one. Oops, I did that one wrong. Let me try that again. And so choose whichever one you want to do. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. And then we're going to talk more about what doshas are. Doshas are a way to categorize your body type to then help you determine what is the best type of food for you, what's the best type of exercise, what should you eat, what should you stay away from. So like I said, take about 5 minutes to do that, and I'll come back at about 8:35. So you should be finishing up your dosha quiz so we can see what you are. And I think I fixed my volume issues, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or put it in the chat box. And once again, this is being recorded and it is on YouTube Live. And after you're done doing the dosha quiz, I will put some information in the chat box so you can read a little bit more about it. When you figured out what your dosha is, if you can put it in the chat box or unmute yourself and tell us what it is. I tend to be more pitta and kapha.
Has been cited in prior hearings. I think they've played brief clips of her, but she's somebody who certainly has.
Christine, did you have something to share?
Yes, I couldn't get on your site, so I wound up going on YouTube, but I couldn't get your, because I haven't done this before, I couldn't get your test, but you know what my test is, so you can use it.
You were, I can't remember from yesterday, I think you were pitta.
No, I think it was Veda and Kapha.
Did you say beta and kappa?
Yes.
These aren't Greek letters, Mom.
What is it then?
Vata.
Okay, Vada and Kapha.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? So you can be predominantly one dosha, or you might have two that are pretty close, as the case with my mom. Or like I said, or you could be all three because you're pretty balanced across them all.
And obviously they have used criminal referrals as a tool of investigation in other places.
Let's check if anybody had anything on YouTube.
It's like Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro. What do you make of that?
So this is a little bit of the card going ahead for worse. Just to be candid, we know
Nope, nothing posted up there.
investigating the possibility.
All right, so let's go through and discuss what they are.
Studiously in that.
Or does someone need a few more minutes?
Use the term witness tampering, which is the legal term. That's something that was used by other committee members.
All right, Christine, I'm going to add, oh, thank you very much for muting yourself. Much appreciated.
What are you going to ask?
Oh, I was going to ask you to mute yourself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's try it again.
Question about are they going to make a criminal referral?
Okay, so if you came out predominantly Vata, and so these doshas are energies, and the doshas govern the physiological activities of the human body. So Vata controls movements in the body, such as blood flow, elimination, and breath. It is one of the primary doshas. So here we go, we're talking about Vata, and we talked about it having movement, which is the air and the ether. And it is dry, light, cold, rough, moving, and always changing. People with a Vata dosha are mostly energetic, creative, and lively. They tend to be light sleepers with sensitive digestion. When Vata gets out of balance, they can get anxious, have insomnia, lose weight, and suffer from indigestion. So someone just put theirs in there, and they are predominantly Pitta. That would have been Colleen. And so if you're Pitta, then that means you're a combination of fire and water. It controls the metabolic system. Let me try that again. It controls the metabolic system, temperature, heat transformations of the body and the mind. So you think about it with the fire, it's definitely going to have something to do with temperature. And once again, I'm going to give you a handout that talks a little bit more about these different doshas in the chat box. The main qualities of the Pitta dosha are hot, sharp, intense, light, bitter, and spreading. They usually have fiery bodies and mind and are medium size in both height and weight. They have a good digestion and a very strong appetite and thirst. They're strong-willed. I know it kind of feels like I'm reading a horoscope, but it's Ayurveda. It's been around for centuries. And if Pitta falls out of balance, they can become irritable, angry, judgmental, critical, and even aggressive. They can suffer from an acidic stomach, oversensitive skin, and extreme body heat or heartburn. And then last but not least, we have the kapha, which is the combination of water and earth. So with them being partially earth, you can think of them as being grounded. And the fluid and the moistness from the water. And they're the two basic elements that everything in the universe is made up of. And and they tend to be a little bit slower, but they're steadier. They have a regular appetite, slow digestion. They move slower. And what else can I say about them? Unfortunately, yeah. So, and we can talk more about them. Like I said, you'll get that in your handout. So the doshas are the energies, and with that, it'll tell you a little bit more about what you can eat. And we're just about done with the Ayurvedic. I just want to pull up one, a different handout to show you. Hoping that I can get it a little bit bigger. Okay, so here is a table that talks about the different, it has the different doshas that we are talking about. And I'm going to need to make it just a little bit smaller. Should work. Oops. There we go. So here with the vata, these are tastes that are good for you. These are tastes that are better for you to avoid. And you might find that this is what your natural tendency is anyway. And it goes into the pitta and the kapha. Which grains are better for you, which ones to avoid. Different legumes that are better for you, which ones to avoid. Vegetables, better for you, avoid, better. And you'll notice that it's a little bit opposite. Here in vata, they should avoid cabbage and cauliflower, broccoli, turnips, which are all your sulfur containing vegetables, but yet that's something that's good for a pitta and it's good for a kapha. And so you see that sometimes the opposites are better for different doshas. Fruits that are better, spices that are better. And so I will also provide you with this information, and maybe you can try focusing on eating some more of the foods that are better for you and see if it makes a difference, especially if you're not feeling that good. All right, before I move on to seasonal eating, does anybody have any questions about the Ayurvedic portion of this webinar? All right, then I'm going to move on to seasonal eating, which completely ties into the Ayurvedic principle of eating seasonally, eating food that is local. It gives you the freshness of the food. It helps improve the taste, because the fresher the food is, the better it'll taste, the longer it will last after purchasing it. It'll have more nutrients. It'll have slightly higher levels of vitamins and minerals in your local and your seasonal foods. And so what's in season right now? We've got some berries, melons, peaches, and nectarines. They give us our vitamins, fiber, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals. And berries are a really good choice for diabetics because they tend to be higher in fiber and they tend to be a little bit lower in the carbohydrates, a little less sweet. And so now's the time, not the time you really want to be buying apples, because apples are more so for the fall time. This is what you want to be eating for your vegetables. And then we have, or for fruits, and now we have our vegetables. And there's so much difference when you get a tomato right off the vine or some fresh peppers. And even a cucumber is amazing. I had went to my mom's cottage back when I lived in California, and I actually took a fresh little cherry tomatoes back and I offered it to one of my coworkers. And he's like, "Oh my God, that is the best tomato I've ever had." And I thought he was just kidding. And he's never, ever had a fresh tomato off the vine. Not the vine tomatoes they sell in the store, but like a real fresh tomato. It's just amazing. Oh, and then there's me. New page. So this is how you can reach out to me, the website, my email, on Instagram. And if you want to find help through food with a whole body and mind approach, then we might be able to work well together. And you deserve a personalized plan. And that's what Ayurveda is all about as well, is personalizing things for you. It is out of my scope to work with you in detail, but I can help you navigate through some of the basics. And then we can call in some big guns if you want to delve deeper into it. And some of the things I offer is Eat Love, which allows individualized meal planning for you. And you can access it on your phone, on your smartphone, or on your computer. And these are what the menus look like. It could be however many days you want. This is examples of what the recipes look like, what the grocery list looks like. And this is how I can help you with everything. And that is the presentation. If you hold on a moment, I will put some of those items in the chat box and I open it up for conversation or any kind of questions you might have. So here's one of the files that I promised you going in there. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank you very much for being a participant in my webinar. And I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming webinar. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing our cooking demo. And so I'd like you to be a part of that. Please send in your recipes to Karen at epicurenutrition.net. If you have any suggestions of what you would like to be made, we'll be cooking something local, something seasonal, because that's part of what the Ayurveda principle is, and part of what I'm trying to do in my quest for having people eat whole, unprocessed foods and to get more plants in our bodies, because we need that. Once again, I'm going to continue to put a few more things into the chat box for you to be able to download, or email me at Karen@epicurenutrition.net, and I will get them in the email to you. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.